Hey guys, OG Albina here, bringing you guys another episode of our Draft League study. Yes, we're bringing it back. I know it's been a little while. I really do love making these videos, though I felt the concept for them was great. They weren't performing as I'd like them to, just because I feel like they were a little bit too wordy. They dragged on a little bit too long, and there wasn't too much of a visual aspect to it. So we're going to be switching up the formula a little bit from now on. We're still going to be going over the Pokemon itself, its type, its stats, and its moveset. Moves it can learn that, potentially be useful, but opposed to talking about specific sets that might work, because I feel like that's way too general and broad to talk about in a draft league setting. What we're going to do is we're going to focus on showcasing some replays in which this Pokemon really is thriving and talk about it from there. So yeah, that being said, this week's Pokemon is going to be Zygarde. I decided to pick a Pokemon that I love using just to kind of get excited about this series again. Zygarde is an absolute beast, and I cannot wait to talk about it. Now, first up, we have Zygarde's typing and stats. Now, typing-wise, phenomenal offensively. You obviously think of, Zygarde and Garchomp when you think of this offensive typing. And the reason it is so good is because that ground dragon covers each other so well. One of the few things that can switch into that Dragon Stab is going to be Steel types, and obviously those are relevant when it comes to grounds, especially with Zygarde. Regardless of the Steel, you're going to be able to hit it with your ground move, which is awesome. But we'll talk about that here in a second. I'm sure we all know what Arrows is by this point, though. But very, very solid typing defensively, especially with the removal of hidden powers. Not much really hits this Pokemon super hard, especially with its phenomenal bulk, which again, we'll talk about here. Actually right now, because I mean, that's all I really have to say about Zygarde's typing. It's great offensively, it covers each other, and its great bulk really allows it to take advantage of the, good defensive typing that Dragon Ground is, being immune to electric. The only real big glaring weakness is going to be those opposing dragons. It's going to be fairy types, and then that big 4x weakness to ice, which is obviously not fun, but no hidden powers means you're here to stick around a lot longer. People can't just tech on random hidden powers. Though I will say, looking at this thing's bulk, a lot of the time those random hidden powers wouldn't be doing as much as you really think so. So let's jump right into that. HP wise, it's rocking out with 108, attack 100, defense is 121, special attack is 81, special defense is 95, and speed is 95. Now that HP plus defense plus the SPDF is pretty insane on a setup-oriented one like Zygarde. It really does give it ample opportunity to boost up its stats, in the face of some potential threats where you think you wouldn't be able to have a hit. If you, throw on Resist Bear, you EV correctly and things like that. Zygarde's pretty much looking any one hit from anything, which is amazing on a mon that has access to multiple ways of setup, which is obviously super clean. Again, without that advent of hidden powers too, a lot of mons are just not going to really be able to break through Zygarde, which makes its bulkier sets a lot better in Gen 8, in my personal opinion. 100 attack, not the best, won't lie, not the best, but you do have some high base power moves, which can make up for it, and then you're going to be either naturally boosting with a Coil or Dragon Dance, or you're going to be banded and you're going to be thrown off, essentially +1 hits as it is. So despite it not being the strongest on paper, it kind of makes up for it in practice and how you use Zygarde if you're using it correctly. You're not going to just bring like a Dragon Dance set and not click Dragon Dance. You're not going to just click, just raw arrows very often. So that's obviously something to keep in mind. 81 special attack is usable. Say you're playing a Tapu Bulu, you need to tech on a Sludge Wave or something like that. That's obviously super clutch. You're playing against a mon with a beefy defense stat and no defense SPDF, you could throw on a Life Orb Draco or something like that. This mon has a lot of options. 81 is definitely usable. 95 is a pretty good speed tier to boost up and be past a couple of those mods. And let's say you outspeed a lot of walls while running minimal speed investment, so you can really invest into that bulk to allow yourself to set up or take those hits that you really want to. So stats wise, this thing is a behemoth in the defensive nature of letting it take those really strong hits in order to set up and kind of set up for the end game. But next up, let's talk about its moveset. Alright, now moveset wise, the first move we have to talk about is obviously going to be 1,000 Arrows. Now, this move is notorious for being just extremely brain dead spammable. You can really just click this button and have pretty much no downside at all times. 1,000 Arrows is a 90 base power physical ground type move that is basically attacking from above, so flying types are not immune to this, which is amazing for the Rotoms of the world, for the Skarmories of the world, the Zapdos, and things like that. Literally nothing is going to be immune to this besides, I guess, your Shedinja of the world, so that's obviously amazing. It makes this move incredibly spammable. And a lot of the times it really only needs to be your only stab. So this is kind of like the go-to move when you're talking and thinking about Zygarde is going to be arrows. You're going to be clicking arrows a good 70 to 80% of the time, and the other times you're going to be another 20% of the time you're going to be clicking Dragon Dance or Coil, which are our next two moves here. Great ways of finding ways to boost up with Zygarde. Like I said, it has amazing natural bulk, so being able to use that to your advantage to either set up a Dragon Dance and get faster than everything and boost your attack, or set up a Coil to boost your defense and your physical attack as well, to really break through teams, or even both. We'll talk about set like that in a little bit, but Zygarde can really actually manage to pull off a really cool double dance set with those things, because all you really end up needing is going to be 1,000 arrows, but we'll talk about that in a second. Extreme Speed is another really cool option for Zygarde, simply just because it gives it really strong priority, especially if you're a band set or you're a coil set and you don't really have a way to boost your speed and you want to pick off some of those faster, frailer threats. That's obviously super clutch, and it's a good 90 base power, so that's obviously great. Some other utility moves this thing gets access to. Glare is another extremely spammable move, a move that's going to paralyze all your opponent's Pokemon unless they are an electric type themselves. You'll be able to paralyze them even grounds, which basically makes it superior Thunder Wave, which is obviously amazing, providing not only Zygarde with speed control, but the rest of your team with speed control. And if that annoying grass that wants to switch in and take your arrows wants to switch in and take Glare, it's going to make it a lot more susceptible to be taken advantage of later in the game by not only Zygarde, but the rest of your opponent's team. Dragon Tail is an amazing phasing move, and it's stab on top of that, especially if you're an annoying coil set. Sub Arrows Coil Dragon Tail is obviously a really annoying set to deal with, especially if you can start Dragon Tailing those grass around. You get some Hazard Stack up, you get like a T-Spike up, something like that. Not T-Spike, a regular spike and some rocks. It's obviously going to be really annoying for your opponent to have to deal with Zygarde behind yourself if you're just Dragon Tailing the whole squad around, slowly getting your lefties recovery. Iron Tail is a cool option, lets you hit some fairies and stuff like that if you're a DD set and you really need to break through them or something like that. Not going to be run every week, but it's nice. Outrage is going to be your best Dragon Stab power-wise. Unfortunately, this thing does not get Dragon Claw, which is super unfortunate, but you kind of jump in between you jump from Dragon Tail all the way up to Outrage, which is super unfortunate, but it's also very strong. Once you push past some of your threats, some of those grasses that might want to take in that 1,000 arrows, you really don't want to take a +1 Outrage or anything like that, or a Banded Outrage. So if you can eliminate the Fairy in your opponent's team, you can eliminate the Steel type with the Ice Punch or Ice Beam or something like that. Obviously, Outrage can be very nice for you to spam in the late game, which is super clean. And then lastly, we're going to talk about some more very niche options from Zygarde. These first two moves are kind of in the sense of trapping, which Zygarde can actually pull off decently well enough depending on the matchup. Block is obviously going to just trap the opponent in. I don't know exactly if it just blocks it in general or if it's, for a specific amount of turns. But that's really nice if you really want to take advantage of something, going for their rocks and you block them in, so you can just coil and Dragon Dance on up or something like that. That's obviously super cool just to use it to set up fodder if you know it can't hit you. That's again super nice to be able to take advantage of that. 1,000 Ways is very similar. It is a trapping move. Why is it not showing up for me in the calc? I want to make sure I explain it exactly right. 1,000 Waves. There we go. So it's exactly the same base power as 1,000 Arrows, but instead of hitting opponents from above and hitting those flying types and stuff like that, what it does is it traps your opponent in, so it's a damaging block, which is obviously super nice. It's honestly a better option than block, if you really think about it in the grand scheme of things, unless there is something you want to trap that is above the ground. That's obviously going to be a little bit more problematic, so you probably want to block in that distance. But 1,000 Ways is another move that you can use to trap in your opponent, especially a really nice niche option if your opponent doesn't really have anything that's needs to be hit by arrows, opposed to like 1,000 Waves or an Earthquake or something like that. So they don't have their Zapdos, or they don't have a mod off the ground or anything like that. That's obviously super clutch to be able to use and tech onto there. Then next up, move wise, we have Core Enforcer. This one, not as useful, extremely niche, but I have seen it come up super clutch before. It's another signature move. Zygarde is a base 100 special dragon type move. Now it is coming off that special attack stat, so it's not going to be the strongest thing in the world. However, what it does is it nullifies the foe's ability if the foe moves first. So if you run like a really slow Zygarde and you're playing against a Gliscor or something like that, what you can do is you can Core Enforce her, it'll lose its Poison Heal, and then it'll start taking some toxic damage. Again, very, very niche situations, and it's extremely more dependent on the speed, which is super, super annoying. If it just worked, this nullifies the opponent's ability in general, that would be dope, but you have to be slower, which is a bit odd. Not the biggest deal in the world, but definitely not the best option in the world. But I figured it was worth mentioning here just because it is, a signature move of Zygarde, so it should get a little bit of, play here. And then we also have Pain Split as an option. Pain Split's a cool option. I've seen some people run on really bulky Zygarde sets on, toxic sets and things like that, which is pretty cool. I do think Rest is a little bit better if you're going to be wanting some recovery on Zygarde, but I figured I'd mention here. Also, there's the obvious moves of Sub and Toxic and Rest and things like that that most other Pokemon have. I almost put them on their own little slide, but I figured, you should know that it kind of gets it. Most Mons are going to get Toxic, most Mons are going to get Substitute, most Mons are going to get Rest. So Zygarde is definitely one of those, and I definitely take advantage of all three of those. But yeah, that's going to be the movesets. I do want to jump into a couple replays, really showcasing Zygarde and what it can do best. The first Zygarde set that we are going to showcase today is one of my absolute favorites, and it is going to be that Double Dance set that we were talking about earlier, which is going to be Sub, Dragon Dance, Coil, and 1,000 Arrows. Now, this is a replay of my own, back from, I would say, about a year and a half ago, so a long, long time ago. This is actually the first time I used Zygarde, and I was playing against my good buddy Hacker. Shout out to Hacker. I'll definitely leave him in the description below. I know he actually recently started uploading, so we'll give him a look if you, want to check out his stuff. But I was playing Hacker back in APA Indigo Season 1, and I remember looking at his team and noticing he did not have an arrows resist. His, ground type switch-in included Zapdos, which obviously gets smacked by arrows, and then his grass type was a Ferrothorn, which is obviously neutral. And I wanted to try and pray and take advantage on that Ferrothorn, trying to, check my Zygarde and switch in and take those arrows. Because, to be fair to Pharaoh, it can definitely switch in and take arrows very well. It won't, damage it initially. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to kind of lure in that Pharaoh, sub down Coil, and I built a very, very bulky Zygarde set. If I can find the old spread, like I said, this game was from a while ago. If I can find the old spread, I will definitely throw it up on screen at this point, but it was incredibly bulky to wear. At a +1, a Ferrothorn that wasn't very invested could never break my sub, and from that point, I could just start coiling and Dragon Dancing on up. So let's go ahead and press start on this replay right here. He is going to lead off with the Ferrothorn as a lead off of my Zygarde. I am going to lead off with the Zygarde simply because I know he's going to want to try and get up his rocks. He's going to, want to try and anti-lead my Diancie, which could be my rocker as well. This is a great chance to check to Diancie, which is also super, super solid. So I'm going to take this as an opportunity to set up a sub immediately as Hacker goes for his rocks. And this is kind of the beginning of the end for him right here. You're going to see him switch out into his Dusknoir, frisk our item, which is going to be our leftovers, as I throw up one Coil. Now, this is going to kind of showcase the insane amount of bulk that Zygarde really carries behind it. As I'm going to Coil again, it's going to throw off an Ice Punch. That 4-time super effective move did not break my substitute at +2 defense, which is insane. Now, he's going to switch out right here as I do throw up a Dragon Dance. I did want to boost my speed a little bit. As the Scoliped's going to come in, I'm going to, Coil one more time. He's going to Z just to break my sub, which is absolutely insane. And then I'm going to sub in this thing's face again. As you see that Mega Horn do 11% from an offensive Scolipede, which is, again, really, really, really nuts. As I do just throw off an arrows here, clean knock this thing out. And at this point, it's pretty much over. He goes into the Zapdos, and because I end up behind a sub, the Hidden Power Ice, this is a Gen 7 replay, by the way, I forgot to mention. The Hidden Power Ice isn't going to break me, and at this point, I'm just going to Oko the entire rest of the squad, which is obviously super clutch. I'm going to sub up in the Pharaoh's face just in case I didn't kill with arrows. I crit him right here. I actually don't think I would have if used defensive, but I preferred to end up behind a sub in case he wanted to leech me or something like that. It was just my best play overall because I knew he could never break my sub. And yeah, that just kind of shows how insanely bulky Zygarde can be and how insanely annoying it can be to an opponent that really doesn't have that arrows resist and tries to take it on by passive means. It can really take advantage of your opponent. So this really just goes to show how scary this thing can be if you let it kind of get the ball rolling. Now let's jump on to the next replay. So next up, we're going to be showcasing just a standard DD offensive Zygarde set, which has an amazing matchup versus my opponent here. This was back in NCP Wi-Fi Season 1, the first league I actually ever uploaded the last week of the regular season. I was going up against the 14th, not the 14th, is it the 14th Doctor or is it the 34th? But nonetheless, we were going up against him, and his arrow resist was the X button, and we just need to boost it up some speed, get up rocks, and find an opportunity to set up. Now, at this point, I actually brought a Shell Smash Crustle this game. It ended up doing some work right here, as you're seeing. It knocked out the X-Cloud, and this kind of forced into Jirachi, revealing that he was going to be a Scarf Rachi, and he's going to lock into Iron Head, take the rocks, obviously, not too big of a deal, but he's going to lock into the Iron Head, knock out my Crustle, and I saw this as a golden opportunity to go into Zygarde. Provided that I don't get flinched, I can, eat up that Jirachi hit super, super easily, knowing my bulk investment and, just being naturally super, super fat. And be able to get up to +1 and really, really put the hurt down on my opponent. So he is going to switch out immediately, go out into his Rotom Wash, which is obviously completely fine with me. It's going to take rocks. It's already poisoned at this point, as I am going to Dragon Dance up. Now, back in Gen 7, obviously we did have access to Z moves, and I remember in this game in particular, I didn't want to risk it being Shuka, Rotom, and burning my Zygarde, so I believe I did just pop off a Z immediately, just to guarantee knock this thing right out. And from this point on, it was pretty much a wrap, as I am going to, I'm going to sit back and watch the Z animation. I kind of miss Z moves. They're a fun aspect of the game. I know a lot of people really didn't like Z, but I thought Z was fun to draft if, it wasn't, just free balls to the wall Z for everything, and you had your captains and stuff like that. But obviously going to beat this Rotom. And then from this point, nothing on my opponent's team can really do anything about this. He has the Jirachi still, which is Scarfed. However, I know that, Zygarde being annoying, fat, and bulky. Again, we're not even like a defensive Zygarde. I know I chew an Ice Punch from this thing at this point. So what I'm going to do is obviously going to Dragon Dance up twice. So we'll make sure that I outspeed this Rachi, and I outspeed literally everything else. I'll knock out like a Shuka Nidoking after rocks, which is obviously nice, depending on his spread. And then obviously we'll knock out the Zard as well. So I'm going to 1,000 arrows, and this game essentially gets cleaned up very, very fast from this point. So it just goes to show that not only is it a defensive setup threat, it can kind of choose to just boost solely its speed and really go to town from there. But yeah, next up, I believe we are going to showcase the band set. So let's jump on to that. Next up, we have a submission by my boy Silver Smasher, a very, very talented Draft League player. I believe this was from his D Streets run recently, where he did have Zygarde, and he was playing up against a team, at least on team matchup, on team preview. I don't know about the rest of the mons on the bench, but the mons that came, there is no arrows resist. So Silver ended up bringing a banded Zygarde set, which actually just 2-taps the whole squad minus a defensive Blastoise. Hydra's going to get 2-tap, Corvus are going to appreciate, and arrows grounding it into another arrows knocking it out, potentially Infernape drops, Azov drops a little bit of trip, and then Diggersby is definitely to a kid as well. So if positioned correctly, this thing can pretty much claim a kill every time it comes in, especially once that Blastoise is weakened. It's basically like a one-time check because the thing just doesn't have that good reliable recovery, and this kind of just goes to show why Zygarde can't just be taken as a setup threat. It can also be, just that really potent wall breaker throwing off big banded 1,000 arrows and banded E-speeds like it does in this game, obviously being able to pick off those faster threats and things like that, which is amazing. And the fact that the opponent has to kind of respect that setup, that Dragon Dance, that coil, and they might not want to let you set up for free, might stand and attack you as you just throw off a banded 1,000 arrows and you're able to knock them out from the ready throw out or 2-hit KO them or something like that. So that's obviously super, super clutch, just really showing the versatility of Zygarde in this format. And then lastly, I wanted to show off a really, really fun set that you do see come sometimes, and some really peculiar matchups for Zygarde. One of my personal favorite sets as well that I've run with Zygarde, and that is actually going to be a sub-toxic set. Now, Arrows is a very spammable move. It's not, immune by anything, which means even the mons it's not doing big damage to, they're not, just avoiding the attack altogether. And it obviously deals with the steel types that you can't toxic. So a sub-toxic Zygarde can be incredibly annoying. I brought it in my NTP Season 1 semifinals game against Jacob because he had an insanely obnoxious core that I just really couldn't break through very well. He had he had Bro plus Torn T plus Tapu Bulu, and I just could not break through them with anything on my team for the life of me. So being the fact that he had his terrain and that he could, obviously keep me a little bit healthy with my own lefties and my own protects and my toxic and stuff like that, I thought a sub-toxic Zygarde would be great in wearing down those threats. And it worked phenomenally. We did end up losing this game due to, the good old timer, though we did play incredibly well. And I think if it was a showdown game, we probably would have won this one. But the Zygarde set, at the very least, did work out phenomenally. It really put a lot of pressure on that Slowbro and that Bulu and that Torn, getting a Toxic off on all three and making them a lot easier for my team to break down and try and beat and stuff like that, which is obviously really, really good. Because, again, you do have to respect that Bam Guard. You have to really respect that Coil or that Dragon Dance, that Double Dance set or something like that. And then you pull up with the Sub-Toxic, and it's really, really obnoxious for your opponent to try and potentially break through and beat. But, yeah, that is going to be Zygarde. Amazing Pokemon. I love this thing for its versatility. It's insane bulk. It's great offensive typing. Just clicking arrows and being annoying. This thing is an absolute menace. I definitely recommend you give it a shot, especially here in Gen 8. I showed 3 Gen 7 replays here, but in Gen 8's even better. I just recently drafted an NCP Showdown, and I'm hoping to do well with it again there. Maybe I should have waited to play some games there, and I could have shown some Gen 8 replays, but nonetheless, go out and draft Zygarde for yourself, see why it's so good. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I'm excited to bring this series back, and I'm hoping that you guys are enjoying it as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're new here, be sure to sub, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Later.